Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Hidizs MK12, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Hidizs for providing the MK12 for a review. To greatly appreciate it. Hidizs, you rock. Alright, so the Hidizs MK12, this will set you back $200 from your bank account. It will go on launch on Kickstarter on June 10th at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. At that time, there will be some early bird specials. The MK12 will be available for $129. There is a 300 unit limit. And then also you can get a bundle of the MK12 and the Hidizs S8 Pro Robin. That will be $179.99. Those options will be available on Kickstarter, again, June 10th at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, so the Hidizs MK12. This is a single dynamic 12mm driver with a 91% pure magnesium M-shaped dome diaphragm, 32 ohms of impedance, 111 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response range of 20 Hz to 45 kHz. The MK12 comes in this gray box. Get some branding here on the front, some specs on the back. Taking off the top, and you're greeted by an area that the items will sit. And then taking that off, underneath you are greeted by some tips. You get 3 different types of silicone tips. You get these wide bore tips, and then you also get 2 other ones. Let's pop these out so you can see what they look like. The tips unfortunately didn't really fit me very well. I had some issues with just the overall fit and comfort, and we'll talk more about tips in a moment. But you get these shallow wide bore tips, and those are called vocal tip. And then you have these more standard grape olive shaped tips, and those are the balanced tips. And then you have the dark black charcoal ones, and those are the bass tips. And I found that all the tips just didn't fit in my ears very well. They just weren't very comfortable. And I had problems with seal, and they also just didn't sound very good. And so I ended up replacing them with a alternate tip. I used the SpinFit W1 tip. Another accessory that you get is this little black pouch. It has Hidizs branding on it. You squeeze it to close it. All right, so then you also get this little carrying case with some filters. And you have 3 different filters that Hidizs has provided. You get a red filter, which is a bass filter. Then you get the silver, which is a treble filter. And then you get the rose gold filter, which is more for what they call balanced. And the filters will go into detail in a moment and talk more about that. Then you get the MK12 is available in different colors. We have the blue variant available to us for review. They are a little bit on the bigger side. You have a metal shell, a little bit on the hefty side. Kind of have a cool little design on them. They are thick. And there you can see I have the red filter on at the moment. These shells feel nice, and they look cool, but they are heavy. I don't have any problem as far as the looks of them, but what I do have an issue with is the weight of them and the size of them. They are thick and big. Feel durable. I don't fear that they would break anytime soon. All right, the cable. Cable has very, very flimsy ear hooks. There is like no tension in these whatsoever, and that's a problem considering how heavy the shells are. Connects with 2-pin. And then you have a very, very small split with a cinch that doesn't even stay in place. and then it terminates into 4.4. I believe you can also get it with a 3.5 termination. Overall, the cable is nice and lightweight, thin, but unfortunately these ear hooks are just useless. I mean, they do absolutely nothing, especially considering how heavy the shells are. Comfort. Now this is, you know, a big shell, and they barely fit in my ears. They're huge, and they fit barely. I can definitely tell I have something in my ears. They are heavy. These ear hooks do nothing to hold it and support it, and over time they just kind of start flopping and drooping down. With the stock tips in, I had really bad problem with them drooping down. Isolation of outside noises, not really that good. Probably about 50% of outside noises being blocked. They do an adequate job. If music's playing, you don't really hear a whole lot going on. But if you just have them in, you're going to hear things. They're kind of muffled. Vacuum cleaners, coffee grinders, people talking loudly, definitely can hear it. Carrying eye conversation with somebody, if you pause the music, you could do that. I had... These do not isolate very well at all. Taking them outside, vehicles were very noticeable around me. Comfort. I find them not to be the most comfortable. I can wear them for about 30 minutes before I have to take a break, just because of how big they are and how heavy they are. They do kind of pull on my ears. 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so, and then take about a 5 to 10 minute break, pop them back in and do that again. I didn't have a great comfort and fit for me. They are big for my ears. Let's do another side view so you can see how they fit. One thing of note, using the SpinFit W1 tip does help them fit and seal better than the stock tip. As you can see, they are quite large. The MK12 from Hidizs. Heavy, big, kind of clunky. Cable is not very good with tension. And comfort-wise, 30, 45 minutes. Outside noise isolation, 50-ish%, somewhere in that range. Not really off to that great of a start. 32 ohms of impedance, 111 decibel sensitivity. The Hidizs MK12 is actually quite easy to drive. I had no problems whatsoever using any dongle, DAP, or desktop. Everything just drove them, got them loud very easily. They were not very demanding at all, and so I had no problems pairing them up with anything. I did find that warmer sources, depending on what tips you used, did affect how they responded. So warmer tips with the bass tips kind of made things sound a little more muddy and bloated and a little too thick. And so do be careful of that if you have something that's really warm, especially in the bottom end, and you're using the bass tips and bass filters. They could get a little bit too much. Neutral, cold, analytical, sterile type of presentations kind of helped the bass not to get all muddy and bloated, but they also brought out some more intensity and more forthrightness in the upper reaches. And so it just kind of depended on what filters you were using and what tips, and it was kind of picky in that regard as far as presentation. I found that using it on a very neutral, balanced type of presentation, something that is not too cold and sterile leaning and not too warm, was the best presentation to pair up with any of the filter settings. Speaking of the filters, so the filters do definitely make a difference. And I found that the rose gold and the silver tips or filters were not my favorite. The mid-range and treble was too accentuated with the rose gold and silver tips, and they just became extremely forward and very intense and very sharp sounding. I found that they were kind of like a piercing type of presentation in the upper, mids, and treble regions with the rose gold and the treble tip or filter, excuse me. The bass was more calm and a little bit more controlled using those filters, but unfortunately those uppers were just too much for me and I couldn't use those filters. The bass filter does enhance the bass. It really gives a lot of mid bass focus and a lot of upper bass focus. And so it at times can get a little bit too much, a little too bloated, a little bit too full sounding, and it can be a little bit muddled and jumbled in the bass region. It definitely adds warmth, but it tames those uppers and it helps it to be a little bit more smooth and a little bit more pleasurable to listen to. So I preferred the bass filters, and going forward, all sonic impressions will be using the bass filter along with the SpinFit W1 tip. So the Hidizs MK12. It is a very dynamic, forthright presentation. I found that it has a very engaging and just a energetic, dynamic, forthright type of sound signature. The bass has a lot of thump to it. There's a lot of to it. There's a lot of impact, punch, and slam. If you really want to get things moving and you enjoy a lot of pounding bass, the MK12 is going to be enjoyable. It is a very forthright and very dynamic presentation, and to me that was too much, and it was kind of fatiguing on the ears. But it does extend into the sub bass, and there's nice rumble and grumble. The mid bass definitely is the focus, and you are going to get a lot of punch, a lot of kick, a lot of slam, and it's got a lot of impact, and there's a lot of authority there, and it really drives home. And then the upper bass does bleed into the lower mid region, adding in some warmth to it. And it has moments of being a little too full, a little too much, and it can get a little bit bloated and a little bit muddy sounding. But for the most part, the bass just has a lot of dynamics to it. And it's just a very go get 'em type of bass, and it really drives home with authority and power. The tonality of the bass is good, and it has nice tone and timbre. Detail retrieval is pretty good in the bass as well, except for moments when it can get a little bit muddled and a little bit confused on busier tracks and more bassy movements. But for the most part, the resolution of the details is pretty good, and it stays fairly well controlled. Going into the mids have a warmth to them in the lower mid range, and then that upper mids are a little bit more forward. That is more accentuated when it comes with the balanced rose gold tip and the silver treble tip. That becomes a very much a focus, and it really does emphasize those upper mid range. But with the bass tip, it is more controlled, and it has a little bit more tameness to it and a little bit more smoothness. It is still very full sounding, very kind of lush and pleasurable in the mid-range, has a warmth to it. The tone and timbre is good. And overall, I find that the details are there, and it has a nice resolution, even though it does, when using the rose gold or silver filters, pushes that a little bit too much, and the resolution kind of starts to get a little bit on the gritty and grainy side of things. But overall, I found that the mids were pleasurable, even if they were a little too overly full sounding, a little too dynamic, and a little bit too forced upon you, a little bit too forthright. Going into the treble extends nicely. There's decent amount of air. It is more tame with the bass filter. The silver filter definitely adds in a lot of sparkle and energy, and it becomes a little too sharp, a little too aggressive in my opinion, and it's a little too piercing. I find that the bass filter was the more comfortable to listen to in the treble, and it has good tone and timbre and okay details and resolution. But just like with the mids, the resolution and the treble can get a little bit too spicy and be a little bit grainy and glassy and shiny sounding when using the rose gold and silver filters. The bass filter does smooth and round that out a little bit more, and they're not as egregious as they are with the rose gold and silver filter. The soundstage of the MK12 is actually pretty good. I was rather surprised at the abilities of the MK12. It does a nice job of showing you different sizes and venues, small, medium, and large, and it will get nice and grand, especially if you're using the rose gold or treble silver filters. It does open it up and expand it a little bit more. I find that the bass filter is a little bit smaller and doesn't quite get as grand sounding, but it does a good job and showing you different sizes and venues and places. Tracking across the stage does a good job as well. The imaging is nice. You can follow things across from side to side, and there's no stuttering or jittering at all. It does a nice job of being smoothly across. You can lock onto things and follow them. It's pretty precise in its placement. Also does a good job with depth. You can look into a stage nicely, and you can kind of tell how deep things are. It's not the deepest of stages, but it doesn't sound muddled and confused and too close together. Things aren't fighting for place. Also does a good job with layering. Everything gets its own little spot and you can pick apart. The only time that it really had issues in that regard were super heavy bassy tracks with warmer sources, or super complex tracks. It sometimes would kind of push things together just a little bit, but that was with the bass filters. The other filters, the rose gold and silver filters, you had more space. Detail retrieval and resolution is good throughout. I didn't really have any problems with details. I was getting things in, and if I was expecting it in the track, it was there. And at times I was hearing things that you don't normally hear in this price point of an IEM. And so I was rather impressed at how much detail retrieval there is. Resolution is pretty good, especially with the bass filter. I did find that with the rose gold and silver filters, the resolution can be a little bit on the gritty and grainy side and a little bit too forced. It can be a little bit on the piercing side. Tone and timbre is good. I do find that it has for the most part, a pretty natural presentation when it comes to instruments and vocalists. And I didn't really have any nitpicks there. Using the treble filter, the silver filter, at times things could sound just a little bit on the metallic side of things and be a little bit too like it's being forced and presented in a more artificial way, but that was just with that treble filter. So overall, the Hidizs MK12, it's a very dynamic, a very forthright type of presentation. It's just got this presence about it that's always kind of like pumping. It's always kind of pushing. It's always kind of banging, banging, banging. And it doesn't matter really what kind of genre of music, what kind of volume levels you're using, what sources you're using. It's just a very dynamic, a very full, a very immersive, a very, very, very forthright type of presentation. And it can be very fatiguing. And I found that the MK12 is fun, but it's not really accurate. It does a lot of things right, but at the same time, it's just kind of like too much. It's like you're trying too hard to do it right. How does it compare to a couple other IEMs? So you have the DUNU Kima. And the DUNU Kima is just a more accurate and true reproduction of sound. It has a more natural tone and timbre and more accurate placement, more accurate depth and layering. It is a more true reproduction of sound. And I found that the DUNU Kima 2 is just more pleasurable. It's just more of a neutral presentation and just sounds more accurate. Also, it is better detailed and better resolving and has a wider soundstage with more accurate placement, depth, and layering. And then you have the Moondrop Kadenz. And the Moondrop Kadenz also is just a more complete presentation. It has more natural, accurate tone and timbre, and also has more details and resolution, a better soundstage, more accurate in its placement, and it is more precise, better depth and layering, and also it is more controlled in the bass and is not near as forthright in its presentation when it comes to the mids and treble. So the MK12, it's a interesting IEM. It has a interesting presentation in that it is a fun, it's immersive, it's dynamic, it's forthright, but it's just a little too much. It's trying too hard to impress. It's just too much dynamics, too much forthrightness. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen, subscription links and notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you can contact channel, follow channel, support channel. Speaking of supporting channel, I want to thank my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for all that you provide. Also want to thank all those who give one-time gifts. Thank you very much for all of that is much appreciated. If you're interested in supporting the channel, there's various ways that you can do it. Check out the links down below. Also down below, there's all kinds of other information regarding how you can check out my gear recommendations, music recommendations, gear rankings, all kinds of other things are listed down below. And lastly, don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.